Alright, so I have my box here. I'm going through and making sure that it's smoothed up and it's nice and neat on the outside before I work on cutting off my lid. So I'm going to cut off on this section. I've already cut this bottom part off for a flat lid. I'm going to talk about changing either your template or how you can freehand and get a new lid design. So first thing we want to think about here is if we have our lid that comes up to the top, it's going to make it so this piece isn't very strong. So we're going to want to make sure everything is dropped down. So if I could put a line somewhere in this area. Instead of taking and cutting, I'm just going to actually fold this one. Do a little more folding on this than I would normally. But so if I take and fold that down, it gives me kind of a general idea of where my lid should go down to. Now I'm going to take and adjust, and I'm also actually going to just fold this in half. And this is one way to take and make a lid that's not completely straight. So I take this, I can fold it in half. I'm going to draw whatever design I want on it. So I'm going to start right here in my corner. When we cut these designs, we make sure that we can't go back underneath. So if I make this line, I can't go back this direction, otherwise it's going to lock that lid in place. I can go up, or I could go straight down, but I can't go any other direction. I'm going to take and make just a little step zigzag. As I take this, instead of having to draw all the way across, I'm going to cut this. And just like when you fold and cut maybe like a snowflake, it's going to help it so the end lines up. So when I cut this, or when I put it on my box, it's always going to line up with itself on the other end. I take that, take my piece off, I'm going to take, and my design also is going to change a little bit because it is cut in half. So I'm going to take this idea. Then I could take it and trace around. Using a pencil is fine. And kind of get a basic idea of this shape that I'm looking for. As I go through, I would go through and trace around all those sides, making sure that none of those lines are cutting back under. They're going straight up and down, so my box lid should lift out. Okay. So you can use your template to make a design. And that's one way to work about it. Another way that you could work about it is if you want, you could take and just freehand something. So if you take and just sketch on your clay, you can always go through and sketch on your clay. And that's one way. Just be cautious again that those lines aren't going back behind wherever you've drawn a line. So it could go straight up and down, or it can come out. However you change that is up to you. I'm going to go through and I'm going to keep using this same template. So I'm going to go through and get it all lined up and cut out. I'm going to make sure that it lines up over here, which it does. And I'm going to actually switch to my fettling knife to get that traced. Back up with that line. And this last one is my fourth side. I'm going to make sure that both of those line up, so when I go through and cut it, it's going to be giving me a nice clean line on that end. Now that I have traced around all four sides, just like with a straight line, I'm going to go through and I'm just going to start cutting. These ones, I want to start a little bit inside of that corner, and I want my knife blade the right direction, so I'm just going to take and press it in. I'm going to pull this, and you probably will have to lift your knife up and out, and you might have to trace around, and some small things like this, I'm just barely going to press in, and it should take care of that line for me. You might have to trace over it a couple times to make sure it's cutting out how you want. Come down to that middle, lift my knife out, reinsert at that angle change, carry it over to the next one, press down. As I get to this corner, I can take and hold that knife in and kind of start to carry it, but if I continue that line, it's going to cut to a different angle. So I actually have to take and change. I'm going to take and cut this part out now. So this process is repeated 4 times. Now I've taken and I've traced around my cutout all the way. I've pressed through and cut. As I go through, I can take now, and my lid should, I guess I should show it this way, should just lift right off. As I take this lid, one thing that you should be cautious of, we don't want to change the shape of any of these. When you cut it, you might get kind of some rough edges. You can go through on the inside and smooth out those rough edges, but we want to be cautious around changing these too much or pressing them in. I'm going to take and just kind of rub off where I cut. This is going to help kind of give me a little bit of a cleaner line on those. If I have some parts that look like they need smoothed out from where I cut, I can take so that this box is really nice and finished. Cleaning off this outside edge. That's mostly cleaned off. I'm going to be cautious. I almost set it down. Those tips are kind of gentle. Same thing with this now. You'll see I have my flange on the inside of this. Maybe you can see that from my flat box. I'm going to take and just kind of do the same thing to make sure that this lid's going to fit on nice. So take and kind of just smooth off any of the little burrs without adjusting the shape of my box. And before I took this lid off, it would have been a smart idea to make a small registration mark so I know which way it goes back on. Now I'm going to have to guess and see if I can get it right, which that first time I didn't get it right. Second time I didn't get it right. Third time I didn't get it right. It's like that fourth time. It's pretty close. Ooh. Maybe not. As I take that lid, I found it finally, I would take now and I could make my registration mark or just a little indication that I'm working on this side if I'm gonna plan on using my slip to design this box. So right now I have these little marks. I know this side's gonna line up with that. As I take this off, it should go back into place. You'll see it's a little bit messy. I can take and kind of smooth over that. If I take my metal rib right now, I can kind of almost hide this all the way. Just gonna press that clay up off, and then when I take it apart, it's gonna give me a little cleaner line. So if I want to smooth up my lid and make sure that it looks like it fits really nice together, kind of almost hiding it, I can take and just smooth that clay over and then make sure that it's there. So that's how you can make a lid that is not straight, which it will lock in place now so it won't come off. If I hold it, it'll stay. I just have to lift it up off.